Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with the experts from John Deere today. Jim, I want to start with you. John Deere has a long lineup of haymaking equipment. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I'm going to start with our mower conditioners, since you have to cut the hay first before you can either bale it or chop it into silage.
Right.
We offer the first rotary machine to North America. So that came over in 1979 from a Europe-based machine.
Okay.
And so we got a long experience. And what we've learned over time that at first we thought they were only mainly for grass, but now it's become the standard practice for even cutting high-quality alfalfa for the very concerned grower there. And the nice thing about using a rotary machine, not only did I tell you earlier that we go through those wet and damp conditions, but many times we grow our hay on those fields and cropping conditions that are not quite pristine.
Right.
There's rocks,
right.
and it's rolly, and it's got places that are along ditch banks and rivers and creeks and so forth. So we have a tendency to sometimes collide with a foreign piece of something in the field.
That's right.
And because we design it with our machine with a shear hub, it only takes maybe 5 minutes and very few dollars to put that in. And that encourages us to keep moving through the field at a good rated speed to get the job done.
Yeah. Also,
the little knives that swing and spin freely.
You bet.
So in case we collide with a little rock or something, it bounces away and comes right back and keeps cutting.
Gotcha.
That all keeps us in the time frame of getting the job done on time. One of the things about using a rotary machine also is it matches a variety of crops a lot better than the sickles. Like I said, not only was it wetness, but different thicknesses.
Gotcha.
And over time, you learn how to adjust. Ron talked about idling it down. You don't normally run a moco less than full rated speed, but you can tweak it maybe a couple hundred RPMs to get still performance out of it. And we want to adjust things like the float on the machine. So if you have it set to stay on the ground at a heavy contact, where the ground is wet, it's going to pull harder than it would if it was set at a little lighter float condition.
Gotcha.
Now there's always a rule of thumb. The heavier the machine needs to be if it's rough or faster you go. Because I hit a little bump, I don't want to bounce over that crop until it comes back down. So if I have a smooth field or I go slower, I can keep it lighter.
Gotcha.
If I have a rough field, like I said, or going higher speeds, I need to keep it a little heavier.
A little heavier.
So just in float will save you some fuel.
Yeah.
Then we can keep those other components in there in good shape so the crop keeps flowing without hesitation. One thing on a mower conditioner, remember this, on a disc machine there's no longer a reel. You used to have the reel in front of those sickle bars. We still make a sickle machine and are self-propelled.
Sure.
And it's a specialty type machine today for those users most of the time. But we don't move crop through a disc machine today. We actually move the machine through the crop.
Yeah.
So that's why maintaining a ground speed is important.
It's really important. Jason, what would you add?
Jim talked a lot about cutting, and of course we have the mower conditioners. We also have disc mowers. Then the Frontier lineup has a lot of tedders, rakes that we get into to merge these crops together after we cut them before, of course, the baler comes through, and then we get our finished product.
Jim, now you've already talked a little bit about mowing hay. What else would you tell us about the mower options that we have?
Well, when you're selecting not only size with the cut, if you're using a mower conditioner, there's a conditioner portion of that machine, that functional area. And that's to encourage the crop to dry. We have that window of opportunity.
Sure.
Some parts of the country we have a 1, 2 day, 3 day, hopefully between rain showers.
Yeah.
Other places they're hoping it rains sometime, someday. It's sunny and breezy and they have dry soil and they get their water with a switch. They turn the diesel on and electric motor.
Yeah.
But as you go normally eastward, you're struggling for bright blue skies. So when we see that little break, we need to cut it. Yeah. And in order to encourage drying, we apply conditioning. And most of us that do conditioning are familiar with a roll type. And they come in steel and rubber or urethane. John uses your urethane material. And that crimps, crushes, or smashes the plant, which allows a break so those interior moistures will start to seep out and wick out in the sun, and the wind will dry the crop down.
Sure.
We also offer an impeller tying conditioner.
Okay.
And that's an important thing to consider. because it fits very well in those conditions. We talked about putting the hay ground is always that rougher stuff that's maybe not as good a soil, those rocks and other conditions like fire ants, gopher mounds. And so it's forgiving. These free swinging tines will let those foreign objects sort of pass through. And that minimizes downtime and so forth. And it keeps the flow working nicely. And we have some specialized conditioners like the trilobe. And that's for that like real meticulous kind of hay grower. It smashes the stem full length, and that encourages dry down even more.
Gotcha. Now, Jason, there are different types of rakes and tedders that are available. I know that you have. Can you speak to those a little bit?
Well, let's just start with the tedder.
Okay.
That's the next step.
Yeah.
If you don't know what a tedder is, that is a rotary implement, PTO driven, and it essentially, it's got tines, it stirs the crop, fans it out.
Gotcha.
So it fluffs it essentially, gives you a wider swath. That's going to improve dry down.
Okay.
If you don't have a conditioner like Jim was talking about, just a standard disc mower, then a tedder is a good option. It will help to crimp, scuff that crop to improve that dry down time. And of course, that's going to help quality. And the better crop we can put up, the better we are for our cattle.
I have to tell you, I mean, I'm a lot more familiar with rakes than I am with tedders. How does a producer know what's right for them? What would you tell us, Jim?
Well, a lot of times there's never a wrong application.
Have one of both, and then you're safe.
A tedder is the kind of implement I would always recommend in many areas of the country to invest in and use it on that rainy year, or the first crop when it's thicker and heavier, and then maybe second, third, or if you're lucky to get a fourth in your part of the country or more.
Sure.
Then you might not need it because the tonnage drops. And so it's one of those apply as needed. And so you want to get, like we said, the hay made right. When we expose it to the sun and the wind, and hopefully no rain, all those elements deteriorate. There's nothing we do mechanically or physically to hay crop that increases its value. All we can do is hope to maintain it. So our goal is always to start with a quality crop. We don't want to ever have a goal of making minimum quality or poor quality.
That's right. Yeah, there was plenty of that,
that
poor quality hay out there this year. So we've got it cut and conditioned. We're ready to talk about balers. And I know John Deere has everything from small squares to a little big lineup of round bales, round balers, I should say. Tell us a little bit more about those.
Well, on the small square baler size, we offer 3 different models. And those users are going to also apply how many acres and bales do I make per year or per job? And it can be the difference of about 1 bale a minute on the larger version versus the smaller on a small square baler. Well, if you're the kind of producer that maybe has a small operation and works off the farm, he comes home, and between the time you get off work in the afternoon before the dew, if you're in part of the country that the dew starts to come on in the evening, you got to get that hay made. And so if you can get 1 more bale per minute, that might be the solution, even though it costs you a little more because you're working on a window of opportunity.
You bet.
Now, one thing you could do to extend that is to apply what we call a crop preservative applicator in a system. And that lets you start maybe before it gets quite ready to bale and lets you continue. Because our goal when you're making hay is to bale it at 18% or slightly less depending on the package size. The bigger the package, the drier it needs to be.
Right.
Anything above that, we can expect to get some heating or molding, and that deteriorates that quality again. Now, when we move into the big round bale type, you can pick 4x4 size bales and balers, and that matches usually, again, that smaller, in the smaller cattle numbers, and then you can go all the way up like the 568 5x6 baler.
Right.
And as you go, sometimes the features, just like our tractors. Rex touched earlier, we use letter designations on tractors. We start adding things like more monitorings. The monitor, we call it a monitor controller. You can set right there on the tractor and set where you want to put the twine or how much net wrap you want to put on it, how many wraps. It tells you the bale sizes being made, where you need to feed the baler. And as we were making those windrows for that mower conditioner, our goal is always to create a windrow that is the full width of a round baler or half the width.
Okay.
We never want to have it over the center line because then you're always filling the middle, and that makes those barrel-shaped bales. And they don't hold together as well and store as well. And we want that.
That's some
be
helpful.
A nice, round, flat top, dense bale.
That's good stuff. Jason, what else would you add?
Well, Jim talked about the monitor, and that does make baling very simple. But when we also add options like mega wide pickup, which lets us pick that crop up better, larger windrows, talk about net wrap and just the speed, the increased quality that we get on our baling. There's just so many additional things we can add to these balers to make them even better and get that crop put up quickly and for the customer.
Yeah, and in good shape. I mean, forage quality is critically important, and obviously as feed costs rise, it's becoming more important that we really manage our forage appropriately. What other options should we consider from a baler standpoint to put up that better hay?
Well, you'd only want to touch hay a minimum amount of time, so having a good pickup. Jason just touched on it. We offer what's called a Mega Wide Plus. It has a roller baffle, and that roller baffle rides sort of on the upper surface of that windrow. And what it is, it's a control mechanism.
Okay.
And as long as those pickup teeth aren't trying to kick it ahead and sort of thrash it, if we just touch it one time and that whole system feeds it in nice and gentle, we're going to capture all the leaves.
Yep.
And you make hay when it's dry.
Absolutely.
It tends to shatter.
Yep.
And the nutritional part is what you're losing.
That's right.
And we've learned, because we have 93% coverage, all those belts on the round baler are so close together, we get very little leaf loss.
That's awesome.
And we're trying to capture all those leaves. So that's what makes the cow produce well.
Absolutely.
And when we're feeding a cow that's got a calf on her, she needs to produce milk so that it weans heavy. Putting that net wrap system on a baler. We used to think of net wrap being a higher cost way of making hay.
Right.
But we've learned over time, because what happened was the customer would look at the cost of the twine versus the cost of the net material.
Sure.
Material to material. That's not the way we should compare it. You need to look at the whole value. The value is I get the bale made quicker, more bales per hour. That means maybe I don't even need 2 balers to do my operation. I might be able to do it all with one, because I can almost make twice the number of bales with a net wrap system. Then I'm going to protect it. Under twine baling, we can assume that you're going to lose upwards of a third of the material over a 1-year storage period.
You bet.
A 6-inch layer on a round bale is 20%, and it's not unusual to see that kind of deterioration on a twine. Now, when you apply net wrap, you can minimize that sometimes to a half to an inch max. Well, that savings alone goes a long ways to feed a lot of cattle.
Pretty significant.
And it holds the bale for transport and storage. And most guys with round bales store more of them outside.
Right.
I mean, we all would like to store always our feed inside, but that's one reason why we went to round.
That's good.
So they make them easier to move and transport too.
What else would you add relative to anything we could do to either change and improve the quality of hay or just help make baling faster?
Well, we've really talked about the baling faster. The Mega Wide Plus pickup, that improves speed. Net wrap, it's so much faster. Like Jim said earlier, 45 seconds to put on twine versus 6 seconds for net wrap. Think about how many more bales we can make in that amount of time.
You bet.
Then when you talk about the fact that we've made that bale faster, again on the net wrap, it's easier to transport, less spoilage. All these things add up, and it just makes that a no-brainer to have on a round baler.
Now, I wanted to ask both of you, I mean, we talk a lot about hay here, and certainly that's important, but of course in our country we bale a lot of corn stalks, and there are some people across the country that I know make more use of baleage and haylage than we do. How do John Deere balers work in those kind of environments?
Good question, Ron. And it's both those two uses of a round baler are growing.
Okay.
We see some that only make stalk bales.
Yeah.
And then this baleage or baled silage
yeah,
is really growing to be a popular choice, because we've learned that you pretty much capture all the nutrition of that feed crop.
Yes.
And we take and bale it up at a higher moisture in that 40 to 60 range, and we don't have to wait for Mother Nature to help us get it dried down. Many times it's a one-day. Cut it in the morning. By the late afternoon, it's ready to be baled.
Sure.
They roll it up into a bale.
Yep.
They take it to the part where they're going to store it. They put the plastic film on it, and then it's protected from the elements for a long time. So until you take it out of storage, it's pretty much protected. Now, in the corn stalk, a lot of guys just use that corn stalk bale to supplement, through the winter months and so forth. A cow is unique. They're probably the most efficient biomass processor.
Absolutely,
in the world. They love those kind of fibrous material.
Roughage.
They have that four-stomach system.
Absolutely.
So corn stalk fits in well because it helps her keep body heat up, and she'll consume those stalks after you've combined the corn
Pretty cheap
off.
way to feed them.
And our round balers have that Mega Wide Plus with that roller baffle.
Okay.
You do need to, though, have your salesman make sure you equip your baler with the extra compression rods right behind that roller baffle. Because
gotcha.
that stuffy,
Yep.
the fluffiness of that material
Leaves and
tends to fluff through the cracks,
Gotcha.
and we want to maintain control.
Gotcha.
And you got a
So some
window in the
adjustments.
fall there between the time you get the combine done and before the snow flies in many parts of the country to get that job.
Or this year the snow flies and then you get your combine and
I would
whatever
add
the case
this.
may be.
When you're doing corn stalks, because it's a harsher material and it's done in that coater, you may have to add more net wrap
Gotcha.
to the bale to
Gotcha.
hold it together during that time.
Anything to add, Jason?
To go back on the silage, we just introduced a new line of wrappers in the Frontier line, and those are some very productive machines.
Okay.
Once you get the baling done, we've really focused on the baler, but we can wrap up to 120 of those bales in an hour.
Wow.
So it's not going to take us very long to get that wrapped up and seal that quality in.
Gotcha.
And that's the key. We want to hold that moisture in, keep the air out of it with the plastic film,
Yeah.
and then that lets the ensiling process work, and we have that good crop to feed whenever.
Interesting. Yeah, whenever. I didn't realize it could happen that fast. That's
Yep,
outstanding.
very quick, very quick.